The Guardians might have lost the battle, but that's because they're focused on winning the war. And welcome to the big leagues, Big Jonk.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to today's Locked On Guardians. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. The Guardians did lose the battle on Wednesday night to Baltimore, but they might have won the war. We'll talk about that on today's show. We'll talk about the arrival of Jhonkensy Noel and what that means for the Guardians and what to expect from Jhonkensy Noel while he's here. We'll talk about what the pitching was able to do, even though it didn't go how you wanted. It might have played a role in the end. And we're going to get to the draft stuff I promised we'd talk about yesterday. We'll talk about being aware of mocks that constantly change. And we'll talk about the trade deadline a little bit. We'll also talk about some combine favorites, some other minor leaguers and things like that. Before we get started, I want to let you know I am Justin Ladwin, your host of Locked On Guardians. I know I'm introducing myself because we have a lot of new listeners. You guys have been tuning in like crazy the last week or so, and we really, really appreciate it. So if you don't know me, and if you do, I'm going to go through it again. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007 for many outlets over that time. I'm currently a freelancer at the News Herald and Morning Journal covering the Guardians minor league system. Also an occasional tribute to Prospects Live. And of course, this is Locked On Guardians. We are your daily Cleveland Guardians podcast. We dive into all the goings-on of your Guardians every day from the majors and the minors, where if you listen, you would have known about Jhonkensy Noel coming up yesterday. And the draft, which we're going to get to today, of course. And I know you're here because you need your daily fix of Guardians discussion. You are in the right place. Happy to have you and become an everydayer. Shout out to all of our everydayers. Shout out to everybody who's listening. Again, this week, podcast doesn't happen without you guys. Really appreciate the numbers. You guys have been tuning in every single day. You guys are enjoying this team, and it makes it more enjoyable to talk about on our end, honestly. Jeff and I love talking about this team in general, but it's more fun when you guys enjoy it. So I hope you're enjoying it. It's definitely a lot more fun to talk about a winner. I know they lost on Wednesday, but there's still a lot of good stuff to cover. Shout out to everydayers, such as Jonathan Bloomfield. I know he comments every day. Jason Love comments all the time. I know he's asking questions on Twitter all the time. David Laneall with a good comment. So we come in every dayer. And the YouTube numbers have been great. And let's get those audio numbers up too. If you're a new listener or not, make sure you're downloading the audio episode as well. That helps us out a ton too. All right, let's get into today. Enough about us. Welcome to the big leagues, big kid Jhonkensy Noel. We talked a little bit about him on Wednesday's episode. So if you tuned in, you heard a little bit about that. I know you tuned into that. I wasn't sure he was coming up. I had heard some things, but I wasn't able to say anything. And truthfully, I wasn't honestly sure to begin with, but I knew there was some possibilities that he was going to be called up. At least I'd heard from some other people. Sometimes that happens. I'm never going to come on this podcast and say something that I can't confirm, or just in general on Twitter. I never do that, but glad to see Jhonkensy Noel get his shot. I said yesterday it was time for him to get his shot in the big leagues because, again, he's out of options next year. He's putting up great numbers in the minors despite some underlying data that does concern me, which I talked about yesterday, and I'm going to reiterate today because we saw a little bit of that. And I realized today, too, on Twitter, people were talking about the option rules and how the situation works. So Jeff and I are obviously deep in the weeds on covering baseball in general and in the minor leagues. We know how these rules work. And I realize not all of our listeners do know how that works. So I'm going to quickly explain that if you don't know. So each player gets 3 option years once they're added to the 40-man roster. Players in spring training, let's take Noel, for example. He was added to the 40-man roster at the end of 2021 before the Rule 5 draft, which I think that's the year the Rule 5 draft didn't happen, but not the point. So he came to spring training next year in 2022. He didn't make the team because he obviously had not gotten above high A at that point. He was optioned down. That was one. 2023, obviously spring training, he had just been double A, optioned down. He got to triple A. And then 2024, coming into the spring, obviously didn't make the team out of spring training, optioned down. That's 3 options. If you are down in the minors, I think it's 15 or 30 days, whatever it is. If you are down there that long in the minors, that uses an option. Used to be you can call players up and down all year long without any limits. Now it's 5 times a year, and the 5th time they're exposed to waivers, or the 6th time I should say. So that is how a player runs out of option years. Noel has been on this roster since November of 2021. So 2022, 2023, and 2024, he has used an option. That goes for George Valera as well, who I think we should get a look at this year as well. So what to expect from Jhonkensy Noel? So he started first base in his first game. Let's talk about the bat first. How fun was that? Right off the bat, a home run to dead center, 97-mile-an-hour fastball. And I had seen some reports, and I kind of knew this from watching him, that Noel can have a bit of a hole at the top of the zone in his swing, and he has been susceptible to high fastballs, just because of how his swing works and his setup. Not the case against Grayson Rodriguez, who throws a 97-mile-an-hour cheddar and has a great changeup, which we saw later in the game. But Noel took him deep to center field. His first at bat, third pitch of his career, 106 off the bat. You saw what Jhonkensy Noel can do right there. That's what he's capable of. That's the good stuff right there. I'm not saying he's a three true outcome hitter. He's not a home run or bust kind of guy. It's not like that. But obviously the outcomes here are home run. There's going to be some swing and miss. But he's an exciting player offensively. And the last 6 weeks for him have been unbelievable at AAA. There is a big gap between AAA and the majors, and power hitters sometimes have a hard time adjusting to start their career in the majors. And I said this on Twitter. I said, I think he could either start blazing hot because teams thought maybe they'll throw him fastballs and they just won't know, and they'll have to get a book on him. Or he could be very ice cold and have a lot of strikeout issues. He ended up striking out in later at bats, obviously. So there's that. I believe he had 2 strikeouts. Yeah, he had 2 strikeouts. He had the fly out the center field, and he had 2 strikeouts after that. Not a surprise. Really not a surprise. That is a typical Jhonkensy Noel game. But you want to know what? If you can go 1 for 4 and hit a bomb like that, you're going to take it. I think you're going to take it, especially for a guy like that. He is playing in a role that you're not expecting big things from him. You know, if he goes 1 for 4 every game with an extra base hit, you're going to take that, especially because he's not a guy you're putting in the middle. I know he hit 6th, but you know, he's not a guy you're counting on to be Jose Ramirez. You're not counting on him to be Josh Naylor like that. You're expecting him to kind of be himself, lower in the order, and help you out with some extra base hits, hopefully, and that's what he's going to do. There's going to be some strikeouts. That's just what it's going to be. And you saw later in the game, you know, he did chase a changeup low, struck out there, and then at the end of the game against Craig Kimbrell, he did a great job that last at bat against Craig Kimbrell. I thought it was a great at bat early on. You know, he took the first pitch, was a slider, he laid off it. He wanted to go after it. He was patient. The second pitch was a fastball on the outside corner. That was a pitch he wasn't going to do any damage with, and it was a well-placed pitch from Kimbrell. So props there. And Noel just wanted to see a ball out of his hand. I get that. And then he threw another slider, which he laid off of. So that was great. I'm sorry. After that was a fastball that Noel whiffed on, or he fouled it off. And you could see Noel was mad because he missed his pitch. That was probably the last fastball he was going to see. Got him the 2 strikes. You knew Kimbrell was going to go after him and try to put him away at that point, right? And then he came back with the slider, and Noel finally chased. So he chased changeups out of the zone. He ended up chasing a slider out of the zone. That is Noel's problem. That's where he struggles. But again, if you go 1 for 4 every night and you strike out like that, but your one contribution is a big home run, a big extra base hit, hopefully there's guys on base in front. That's why you hit him lower in the lineup, and you don't have to count on him too much. I would like this to be an extended look because he can play first, which means you can move David Fry to the outfield. You can play him other places that keeps him open. You can catch him when his arm is okay. You can give Josh Naylor days off like you did. And I'm guessing he was a little banged up maybe, but I know Vogt said they wanted to give everybody a day off with the stretch they have going on right now. So a blow for him was really good. And he had a great pinch hit walk late in the game that set up Noel's at bat, that gave him a chance. So they were never out of this game, which was great. We'll talk about the pitcher in the second segment. But if you're one hit from Noel each night is an extra base hit, which I think he's capable of. I don't think he's a guy who, you know, you're going to go through super cold stretches. He might. It's going to be tough. Big league pitching is really good. You know, he's going to play mostly first base. I'll be curious to see if they put him in the outfield. I'd prefer they didn't. Just me personally. I know he's got a decent arm out there. The range is limited. Let the guy play first. He's a good first baseman. Let me say that. First base is a strong defensive position for him. It's not a lot of value defensively, but he's a solid defender over there. He's more athletic than you think at first base. Outfield, the running, not so much. But put him at first. Let him DH. Hit him 6th or 7th each night. See if he runs into some home runs. Be patient with him. Because if he really can make the adjustments to the big league level, if you can live with a guy who might hit 240 or 230, but he's going to hit, you know, maybe he's Franmil Reyes. Franmil Reyes had some good years doing that, right? He struck out a little bit too, and he fell off way at the end there. But if that's what you can get from Jhonkensy Noel, that's fine. Now's the time to do it. They've built themselves a cushion in the division to test this out. They have to do it before next year, because you don't want to go to spring training and force him to make the team out of big league spring training, or trade him or expose him to waivers, because I'm pretty sure he get claimed. I doubt you're getting him through. It is what it is. But this is a good time to do it. It was a good first game. Congrats to Noel. Fantastic kid, hilarious, big kid. You saw, if you saw the videos from the Clippers clubhouse, they were all cheering him on as he hit the home run. They love that guy. He's a great story. He's super funny. Really rooting for that kid to succeed for that. And just because if the outcome comes out where I'm wrong and I was too low on him, he's going to be a good player. I'm going to talk about that a little in the second segment, along with the pitching. You probably saw the stats about what other Cleveland hitters have hit a home run their first at bat of their career, if you were watching the broadcast. We'll talk about that guy, the last guy to do it, Kevin Kuzminoff, and what happened to him. Let me know if you know who he got traded for in the comments. I will answer that after the break if you're not sure. So look forward to that on today's Locked On Guardians. Guys, you know it is always tax season. And here at Locked On Guardians, we pride ourselves in getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, the playoffs, which we'll be covering this year, I think, year-round. Tax collection season is year-round. Just because the season's over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can and will garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, even seize property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. I say it every day when we talk about this. We have to file 1099. We are 1099. We're contractors. We're working here. And I work out of state, so I have to pay Rita. That's super complicated. I need tax help doing those things. I can't do it alone. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require planning, or maybe you finally hit that parlay this season and need help filing correctly, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit taxnetworkusa.com or tnusa.com/lockdown. See the link in this episode description below. And you guys also know passion, drive, and patience are the winning formula for championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle to level it up to peak performance. Superchargers like the supercharging Jhonkensy Noel home run, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, whatever you're into, whether it's power, speed, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And you know eBay has the guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because eBay Motors, you are burning rubber like the baseballs Jhonkensy Noel burned tonight. You're not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins like the Guardians did in this series against the Orioles. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. You know, of course, we want to tell you about the Locked On Sports 24/7 channel. If you're tired of all these national analysts who don't get it right about your team, they're screaming, they're yelling, make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day. The biggest stories, not all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis and opinions from local hosts that know your team better than the rest of them. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV's channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, we said what we're going to talk about with Jhonkensy Noel hitting a home run in his first career at bat. Kevin Kuzminoff was the last Cleveland player to do that. What happened to him? Well, he got traded. I made the joke on Twitter. I said, get ready to learn San Diego, buddy. That was a joke. Hopefully they don't trade him. Maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe it'll be Jackson Merrill for Jhonkensy Noel. No. That is what happened for the Guardians. The Cleveland franchise back in 2006. They traded Kevin Kuzminoff that offseason for Josh Barfield, who I believe was the rookie of the year in the National League that year. Well, unfortunately, Josh Barfield went on to have a terrible career. He was out of baseball by 2009, was never good for Cleveland. Kuzminoff had a pretty decent career, hit some home runs, never really lived up to the hype, but he had some decent years overall offensively. Let's hope for a better run for Jhonkensy Noel, and we'll see what happens there. And but hey, Josh Barfield went on to be the director of player development or an AGM for the White Sox now, who also works with Grady Sizemore. So there's that. Okay, so more about the offense. Gabriel Arias had a good night again. 2 for 3 of the home run, 1 of 2 home runs in this game for the Guardians. Only 2 runs they accounted for. Not a great night offensively. It is what it is. They only struck out 4 times against Grayson Rodriguez. Ironically, 3 of the 4, or I think actually all 4, came after the 5th inning. I think it was the end of the 6th that he finally struck out his first batter, and then he struck out the side in the 7th. So they put the ball in play against Rodriguez. Quan hit a ball hard. Jimenez hit a ball hard. Jose had 2 balls hard. Didn't have anything to show for it. Noel and Arias, obviously the home runs. Austin Hedges had a double. Threw out 2 runners. Good defensive day for Austin Hedges. Good offensive day for Austin Hedges. 1 for 2 with a double. You'll take that. Just not enough, but that's okay. He would have liked more offense for sure. Grayson Rodriguez is a tough customer. They gave themselves a chance. Again, this whole series, they obviously won the series 2 out of 3, right? They were in every game. They were in a tight game on Monday with Tanner Biden on the mound. They won that one. They had enough offense. It takes more than 2 runs to win a game. Sometimes that's going to happen. That's why I like to see this team get another bat at the deadline. We'll see where that goes. Talk about the trade deadline coming up here in a little bit. But Carlos Carrasco, I think, should be commended for this one. He pitched a whale of a game. Only struck out 3 batters, which, again, you're not looking for strikeouts for Cookie at this stage of his career. He had a 30-pitch first inning, and he ended up throwing 91 pitches out of 5. So a 30-pitch first inning, he had to really, really pull off the high wire act, which he's done a lot this year. He really has. His ERA could be a lot worse because some of those early high wire act innings he pitched could have burned him, and he could be looking even worse right now, but he doesn't. He's done it all year. I'm not saying it's always going to happen, but he did it against a good offense here, and really it was just Gunnar Henderson that kicked his butt. Gunnar Henderson kicked the Guardians' butt all series long. Great for I have Gunnar Henderson in my fantasy team, so great for me because the Guardians won 2 or 3, but Henderson still managed to have a big series. Getting someone who can get him out in the playoffs is going to be key. Maybe another reliever. We'll talk about that. But Carrasco only threw 61 pitches from innings 2 to 5. He got you to the 5th inning, only giving up 2 runs. That was huge. You needed that out of him. You could not afford to have him go out there and just absolutely lose it and only last 2 or 3 innings the way Logan Allen did the night before. This bullpen was gassed, and you've got a 4-game series in Kansas City coming up. You needed them rested. So Curry comes in. And I know Curry get the 2 home runs that cost him the game. That's unfortunate. But you're not going to win many games scoring 2 runs, especially against the Orioles. You got to score 4 or more. And the Guardians' record is incredible when they score 4 or more. Obviously, it would have taken 5 to win the night. But Curry get the 2 home runs. That is unfortunate. But they both combined for 8 innings. You didn't pitch anybody of consequence in the bullpen. Curry did this all last year, by the way. A little bit better. He didn't get the home runs like this. But he did this all last year where he saved the bullpen. I'm sorry, was that last year or 2022? I think it might have been 2022. That he did. No, he came up late in 2022. So last year he did a lot to save the pen. He was up all year. That's what they do. And again, I know it doesn't feel good to lose, and I know you'd like to sweep that series. They won the series. You win the series, and you go into Kansas City with a fully rested bullpen. Everybody got a day off. Nobody else was throwing in it. You didn't have guys even warming up. No Kate Smith, no Hunter Gaddis, no Clase, no Henches. None of those guys went up and got hot. Okay, so they're all ready to go for the next 4 days in Kansas City to get you to an off day Monday where everybody resets once again. Saving that bullpen was huge. I know the loss stinks, and I know maybe you would have brought in, Cade Smith or somebody else to try to keep it closer and win the game, maybe. But you know what? Sometimes you've got, again, I hate comparing it to war because I know it's not, realistic, whatever. But sometimes you've got to, look at the bigger picture here and sacrifice one day to come back and fight another day. And that's what they did here. And I commend them for that because Carrasco came out and did what he needed to do. And he pitched fine after that first inning. Again, no runs came across the plate in the first inning. That was huge. And then Curry came out. And I know he didn't pitch great, but again, he saved the rest of the bullpen. And I know that's not going to look pretty in the standings or the box score, but I can tell you his team appreciates that, and it's going to have positive effects going into the Kansas City series and the whole season when stuff like that happens. Those are little things that just go unappreciated that because they're a loss, everyone gets frustrated. But his teammates appreciate it. His manager appreciates it. I think it has a big impact on the rest of the bullpen the rest of the way when things like that happen. So we'll see if in Kansas City if it pays off. But it's a what do they say? We always say good process over results. Okay, so we'll talk a little about the draft in this final segment coming up today. Let's also talk about the trade deadline. I have some interesting theories about what Cleveland could do, what they should do. I'll throw out some targets, but I don't think it's going to be as boring as we think. I think there's a lot of people who are talking about this trade deadline going to be boring. I don't think it will be, and I'm going to share why when we come back. Travel season is heating up. This episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by Booking.com. Yeah, it is heating up travel season, especially for baseball games. Maybe you're planning that trip to go to see a stadium on the road you've never seen before. Maybe it's a rival. Well, the right hotel can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. I used Booking.com in 2018 when I planned my trip to Cooperstown to see Jim Thome get inducted to the Hall of Fame, and all the hotels were booked up right in Cooperstown. So I had to stay on the outside of town. I had to find a really good fit for me. I ended up choosing a hotel in Utica through Booking.com. Gonna burn Utica to the ground. No, it was a good hotel. Let me know if you get that reference. But it was a good hotel. Also had to use it on my honeymoon last year. We were stranded a little bit in Jamaica, coming home to Miami. We got in late. We missed our connection. Had to use Booking.com to get a hotel when we landed in Miami to stay the night to get to our flight the next morning. And that hotel even had a snack bar. It was open at midnight. We got there. Super clutch. So thanks to Booking.com for the help with that. The right stay, as I said, can make you a fan of any U.S. city. So if you're planning that trip to see a ballpark out of town, even your rivals, book today on Booking.com, the site, or in the Booking.com app. Maybe you are not Emmanuel Classe of closing deals. B2B is tougher, selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is the sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes and which accounts to prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are more likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator helps you with the most up-to-date first-party data, super important, enabling you to unlock conversations with people that matter. So right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial. Again, that's one of the longer trials you're going to get with anything on this network at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. Guardians are headed to Kansas City for a 4-game series. It's a big one. A lot of chances to separate the Royals into third place for the Guardians. Listen on the SiriusXM app and find the action from Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus at 8:10 on Thursday night. Search Guardians in your SiriusXM app. All right, the trading deadline. I don't think it's going to be as boring as we think. The standings are all muddled, right? We have the second wild card, or the third wild card. I'm forgetting how many playoff spots there are anymore. There's 6 seeds that go to the playoffs from each league now, right? So you've got the extra playoff teams, and everyone says that's going to make it harder to identify sellers, which is true. That does make it harder. It takes longer. But today's GMs are a lot different than they were in years past. Look at the Guardians last year. They were 1 game out at the trade deadline. They still traded Ed Rosario. They still traded Aaron Savali, right? They still made moves because they just didn't feel like this team was in it. There are more GMs. There are more teams that think like Cleveland than any other ways. You've got your buyers. It's going to be tough. But there are more teams that are opportunistic. It's not necessarily buying and selling like Cleveland, right? Tampa Bay is this way. But there are teams that are going to be selling the half pieces. And I think we've got a couple of hot stretches from the Mets who are now in it. And who knows, maybe closer to the deadline, they have a bad stretch and they're out of it. All it takes is in July, if you have 2 bad weeks, let's say you have 10 games and you go 2-8 or 3-7, all of a sudden you're 5 games out of that wild card instead of 2, and you think you're in it. Might make sense to sell. GMs are always looking to be opportunistic for the most part. Unless you're a clear-cut buyer, you are looking to make a good deal for your team long term. Now, there are some GMs that are in the hot seat. The Blue Jays are weird. The Padres are weird. There are some GMs that are going to be on the fence. That's going to be tough. But the Marlins are open for business. I think there's targets there for Cleveland. I think Ryan Weathers, if he gets that finger healthy, I know he's got like a finger issue, makes sense as a long-term target, not necessarily Jesus Luzardo, who's hurt. I don't really love Tanner Scott. He's got some walk issues. He's going to be a hot name on the market, though, for relievers. Some names I'm just going to throw out real quickly, I think, are options for Cleveland on the pitching market. Frankie Montas in the Reds is on a 1-year deal. He's not had a great year, but he's a rental. If Cleveland feels like they could help him a little bit, he's got an ERA below 5, got a pulse. That's better than McKenzie and Allen, right? They're kind of out of it right now. And that's a GM who has shown the knack to tear down because they have, questionable ownership. And he's on a 1-year deal. If they're not going to make it, he's not missing a lot of bats. I think Jeff Passan threw out Eric Feeney from the White Sox. Makes a lot of sense because the White Sox are way, way out of it. The Guardians need that help, and I think it makes sense to trade with them in division. I have no idea what their GM's going to do because he's new, but they're definitely going to sell. Go out and give it a shot. Jack Flaherty from the Tigers, I know, again, in division, but Jack Flaherty's having a heck of a year. The Tigers are 15 out of the division right now, and they're 6 out of the wild card. They could get hot, but their offense is terrible this year. They've got great pitching, but Flaherty's a rental. Their GM is from the Giants. I think he is a smart dude, and I think he is going to look to capitalize on the value in this market on Jack Flaherty. The Guardians made a deal to get Leonys Martin in 2018. They can do it again. Again, it's a rental pitching option who's really good. And the Tigers, I don't know. It's going to be difficult because the Tigers are coming soon. They didn't arrive this year like some expected, but they're a good team. But it could be complicated. I think Eric Feeney makes a little more sense because the White Sox are further away. But Flaherty's a really, really good option. So there's some names out there that I like. The other idea here is this for like relievers, right? I don't love the idea of Tanner Scott. Oh, Nick Martinez from the Reds, too, is a free agent at the end of the year. He's been a nice swingman for them. Doesn't miss a ton of bats, but he doesn't walk anybody. Could be a super reliable bullpen / starter, long guy. He's been super good each of the last 3 years. Really like him. The Reds, if they're out of it, should definitely sell him. Like that idea there. He has an player option for next year. Not against that. Not against that at all. We'll see. But there's also the thing out there. I don't love Tanner Scott, and I didn't mention Yusei Kikuchi either. But the idea here about relievers is I want the Guardians to add another reliever because the starting pitching market might be difficult. But look at the competition around you, right? The Orioles want to trade for a reliever. We know the Twins do. We know the Royals do. We know the Yankees need bullpen help. If the Guardians go out and get a reliever on the market, not only does that make their bullpen better and deeper and help you get through the rest of the season into the postseason, but it also blocks your opponent, your biggest competitors, from getting that piece. Again, I don't really love Tanner Scott, but if it's somebody the Royals really need or the Yankees feel like they really need, or even, the Orioles, whoever it is, if you go trade for that guy, he can help your bullpen if you like him, but it also prevents your biggest competition in the postseason from getting that guy. That's something to consider, I think. I think that'd be a shrewd move. You go out and make this really good bullpen a little bit better, but you also hurt your opponents from going out and getting a piece because your bullpen's already better than theirs. It's already better than the Orioles, already better than the Royals, already better than the Yankees. But if you go out and you keep them from getting a key piece they need in the bullpen, that's a double win to me right there. So keep that in mind. I think that's an opportunistic way to look at it because the starting pitching market is going to be expensive, even for a Jack Flaherty or even for a Yusei Kikuchi. A bullpen option might be a little cheaper, and it might, I'm not saying a lot, but it might be a little bit cheaper. And it also blocks your competition from getting relievers. And we know these other teams need relievers more than the Guardians do, but it might be a way to get a 2-for-1, a win-win. All right. I said yesterday about mock drafts, right? There's a lot of mock drafts out there. I love mock drafts. They're fun. And the people who do them, I do one for fun, but I don't really know anything other than just what I piece together from what I can see and what makes sense. But there are a lot of people who change their mocks based on, yes, they change their mocks based on current information and rumors and all this other stuff. But there are people who change their mocks because it's engagement. And you just can say at the end of the day, well, I had so-and-so mock to this team in 4.0 or 2.0 or whatever version or whatever time you release the mock. I'm just saying, before you buy in on these specific rumors, especially when it comes to the Guardians, they're not letting anything out. Everybody's drawing conclusions. Again, we've been saying this on the show multiple times. Everybody's drawing conclusions from what other teams think they're going to do, what they've done in the past, what makes sense. None of it's coming from Cleveland unless it's intentional, and that's just smoke. So just, be careful how you buy into mock drafts and how much stock you put into them, and if you get upset about a certain player going there. For what it's worth, I think Chase Burns is an option. I know there are people with Cleveland that love him, that are really impressed by him as a pitcher. I don't think Cleveland goes that route personally, no matter how much they like him. I think a bat just makes too much sense for them, and it's safer, and there's plenty of upside. And I think all things equal, Burns will take the same money that Weatherhold might take, and there's also Bazana who might take a little bit more, but it could still work money wise. We've talked about that. I'm not going to come on here and tell you I know this, I know that. What Jeff and I do, we hear things sometimes. We don't pretend to know anything we don't know, but we're good at analyzing the news. We're good at following trends and following what teams have done, and we're good at piecing stuff together. That's what we do here. We don't try to make up stuff that really don't know. So I'm just telling you what we think, what we piece together on mock. So just beware. It's silly season. It really is. All right. I promised we would talk a little about the combine today. Let's talk a little bit about Jax Jimenez. He's not a combine guy, but real quick, he's from the West Coast. He's in Oregon. He's an Oregon commit. Kid in Northern California. I shouldn't say Oregon. He's in Northern California. Had a fantastic high school season. Somebody who could be on Cleveland's radar. They've been really heavy on the West Coast the last couple of years, so watch out for that. He's an infielder. He's left-handed hitting, and I think he's a switch hitter. Really good contact approach. Daniel Egan was one of my favorite guys in the combine last week. Daniel Egan took a no-hitter in the 9th inning for Presbyterian this year, and he was still throwing 96. I know there's people, again, with Cleveland who like him a lot. I think he's moved up draft boards. I'd definitely watch on him. Cade Obermueller had a great combine, tons and tons of spin. He is, if you remember Wes Obermueller, that's his dad from Iowa. Great spin from the slider, really low approach angle at the fastball. We're talking like not quite Chris Sale, but pretty darn low from that sidearm angle. That's attractive for teams right now analytically. The walks are an issue, but I think the traits are really interesting on a day 2 arm there from college. I think Jeff talked about Luke Sennard, so I'm going to skip him here a little bit. JD Dix is a switch hitter from Wisconsin. He's a shortstop who gets hits high marks for makeup and work ethic, leadership. Played through an injury this year, had a great combine hitting the ball both ways as a switch hitter. Exit velocities are okay. Should stick at shortstop. He's from Wisconsin. They produced some good talent recently. Wouldn't be shocked to see him. I'm not sure if I think he's a round 2 pick. I think he's probably more like a 84. Maybe that's what the Guardians' second round pick, third round pick, maybe a 4th round pick if he gets there. But I keep him on the radar. I think he's interesting. Also, like a couple other shortstops, Carter Johnson's been rumored to them. Callan Lindsay, Tyson Lewis, Wyatt Sanford. History tells us that if the Guardians go with a college hitter in the first round, they are going to go with prep with their second pick, that comp pick. They've done it before. It may not be an infielder. It may be a pitcher. There's Braylon Doughty. There's David Shields. There's Joey Oakey. There's Levi Sterling, Dason Hill, Boston Bateman, all those guys. There could be a play there for that. Real quickly, congratulations to old friend Carlos Santana. He played 2,000 games in his career now. We love Carlos Santana on the show. Longtime great player for Cleveland. Never going to say a bad word about Carlos Santana on the show. So props to him. 2,000 games is hard to get to, man. He is continuing. He's been good for the Twins this year. He's been good. He's one of the most productive first basemen in the AL this year. Good for him. Love to see it. Jose Ramirez, congrats to him. He is now 3rd on the all-time list in home runs in Guardians history. That is wild. Just say that statement. He is going to pass Albert Bell later this year. He's 100 away from Jim Thome. Never thought anybody would approach that, especially not a 5'9" third baseman or guy who started off as a middle infielder. Just unbelievable. So that's super fun. Looking forward to see that more. All right, Guardians and Royals this week. The Guardians have a chance to put the Royals further in the rearview mirror. You've got Ben Lively, who's been your second best starter this year, versus Michael Wacha on Thursday. Friday, you got McKenzie and Alec Marsh. And then Saturday, we've got an ace-off between the Tanner Bybee and Cole Reagans. Should be a fun series. The bullpen is rested because of what Carrasco and Curry did. They lost. I know. They could have won. You could have used the bullpen, but now they're rested. Put the Royals. Take 3 or 4 from the Royals, man. They are in bad shape. You have given yourself even more cushion. What's in good shape is this show. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate all the numbers the last couple of days, the comments. You guys have been awesome. Keep it up. Would love if you listen on the audio side too, because that really helps the show a ton. Leave us a review if you haven't in a while. We would really appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in while I'm hosting solo and Jeff's on vacation. Hope Jeff's having a good time. Hope you're having a good time listening and watching this team. So much fun right now. This KC series should be a lot of fun. Go, Guardians, go. Let's take 3 or 4 in KC.